I guess not recently, in the past couple of years, there are a lot of these shows that are like, they're outdoorsy shows. So they'll take some people or groups of people or like a person, and they'll say, okay, we want you to go survive in the woods for as long as possible. Like, there's this show called, and I guess it started like Bear Grylls, and then you had Dual Survival, and there's this show called Alone, right? So I like Alone. There's also the show called Devil's Canyon. Now, it's not about Satan. It's Devil's Canyon. It's called Devil's. You are so awesome, Sergio. You are loved. You are smart. You are important. All those things. Yeah, right, exactly. So Devil's Canyon is this show about this really, really dangerous canyon that people, many of miners have tried to go to, and they try and get gold from it. But people die there, like all the time. So it's called Devil's Canyon because it literally kills people all the time, right? So that's a cool show. And basically the guys go out there with the backpack full of goods. They say, okay, look, I'm going to try and find as much gold as possible before the land freezes over. It's going to be great. Now this show called Alone, it's a whole nother level. All right, so the first season of this show, I got sucked in, and I had to say stop, no more, or I'd be distracted. But they took 10 individuals, and they put them all over Vancouver Bay, which is a place over in British Columbia. And what happens is it's got the highest population per square mile of mountain lions. There are also bears and other creatures as well, but mountain lions in particular. So they take them to this place, and they say, okay, look, we'll give you 10 items. I think it's 10 items. 10 items to take with you, and you just survive for as long as you can. And here's the thing. If you are the last person to survive, thrive, whatever it might be, and stay in this area, you get $500,000. But they warn you, $500,000 sounds nice. That's a great camping trip, right? But they warn you to say, look, now here's the thing. If you go on this excursion, go on this trip, you might be gone for up to a year. How many of y'all would do that for $500,000? Go out by yourself, like there's nobody. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no Twitter. There's no Instagram. There's no social media. Like there's nothing. You got to find your own food. You got to kill your own food. You got to bleed it out. Yeah, you got to cultivate the land. How many of y'all would do it? Zach, you do it. Oh, look at y'all. Okay, we'll see what happens. But so as I'm watching this show, right, the first day, everybody's pumped up. I'm like, I got this. Everything's good. I got all my supplies. Day 4 or so, some of the guys are starting to get a little worried. And I say guys because for some reason their first season was only men. I don't know why. Maybe women were like, that's just stupid. But guys tried, right? So the first couple days, it seemed normal. The guys were alone. They had no one else. They had GoPros, they had cameras and that kind of stuff. One guy made friends with like a chipmunk. Whatever it takes, you know. But they had no one around them. But after a good week or so, some of the guys started going from, hey, I'm alone, to getting a little depressed, a little sad. They went from being alone to feeling lonely. And that was honestly the reason most of the people ended up dropping out. It wasn't because they got sick or they couldn't find food or they lost it. Like, these people lost so much weight. The before and after was ridiculous. So if it were me, I'd gain like 80 pounds and they'd say, okay, cool, I'm just going to survive. I can't find any food. I'm just going to live on my own fat. It's going to be great. But that's not what these guys did. But they got so small and they did all these things. All these survival gurus, and yet the ones that ended up leaving, they left because, in all honesty, they felt lonely. They missed their kids, they missed their wives, they missed their dog, whatever it might be, but they felt lonely. And I look at it and think to myself, why is it that being lonely had such a strong impact on these awesome guys, these strong men? And then I think to myself, well, being lonely honestly impacts all of us. In fact, if you look up just what does it mean to be lonely, you'll see all these different, it's weird. It doesn't come with definitions first. It says, here's what you can do in case you feel lonely. Here's some of the symptoms in case you feel lonely. Here's what you can do for lonely people. There are so many, it's almost like here's the number one fear in the world or in the U.S. is death. The next one is basically being alone or being lonely. But why is it that people are so scared of being lonely? Because being alone isn't bad, right? I mean, if I'm going to go to the restroom, I don't want anybody in there with me. I am completely fine I've been doing it for over 20 years by myself. I got this, all right? I figured it out. I can do it alone, right? Unless you're a girl, then you guys go in there and you have like a little pity party. I don't know what y'all do, actually. I know there's lotion in the bathrooms. I've seen that, so it's weird. I don't really know what all goes in. I don't know why there needs to be 5 of you, but you guys hang out together. But guys, we go in the bathroom. We don't talk to each other. We don't look at each other. Like, you look at the wall. You don't make eye contact. Why? Because being alone in the bathroom is a good thing. It's a natural thing. It's a godly thing, right? Anyway. I don't feel lonely when I'm in the bathroom, right? Because that's the way I'm supposed to be. But why is it that there's sometimes we're like, look, I'm alone right here up on the stage, right? And I don't feel lonely. But I can guarantee you there's somebody who's sitting in this room right now, and you're so close to somebody you could probably smell their armpits, but you feel lonely. Like, why is it that we can be all by ourselves and be alone and be content at times, and yet we can be with a bunch of people and feel so lonely and feel empty inside? What is the issue with loneliness, and why does it impact us so much? Well, how do we handle it? Well, okay. Tonight we're going to talk, I wasn't expecting a response. Tonight we're going to talk about loneliness and what you can do in that situation. Just one simple story from the Bible. It's not a simple story. It's a very complex story, but we're going to make it really simple. And how this man went from, okay, this situation is pretty crazy, to saying, you know what, look, we're going to figure this out. So if you have your Bibles, go ahead and turn to Job, and we're going to dive into a new series called Perspective. It's based out of Job, in case you didn't know. It's not Job. It's J-O-B. And it's going to be absolutely awesome, just letting you all know. Boom, bright colors. So it starts off and says, verse 1 through 3, there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. And that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. There were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters. He had the Grabowski family beat. He possessed 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen. When I say yoke, it means like there's like 2, they're twins, like they're pairs. So it's 1,000 oxen. 1,000 oxen and 500 female donkeys and very many servants, so that this man was the greatest of all the people in the East. Let me break this down for you really quick. Who was Job? Loaded. That's who Job was. Job was absolutely loaded. He had a lot of money, but not just money. The man had power, he had position, and most importantly, he had God. It literally is like, and here's the thing. In the Old Testament, you don't really see someone described this way, except for God. But it said, all right, he was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. How many of y'all wish God looked at you and said, hey, you know what? You turn away from evil. Instead of you look at it, you're like, you know, let me just get a better vantage point. I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to look at it really quick. Flee from evil, just saying that. Job was a man above reproach, to the point where actually his kids, get out of here. All right, to the point where his kids, his sons would throw banquets. They'd throw banquets, parties, little like festivals for their family, and they'd invite their sisters. You got to realize something. When you've got 9 siblings, and you can throw a banquet or throw a party, and everybody's getting along, something's going right. I'm just saying, that's amazing. Because when I get together with my siblings, I mean, we've got God, but somehow conversations get started, or someone's like, you ate too much of the mashed potatoes. Like, there's a little confrontation that happens. It's a healthy thing, but it happens. And Job, not only did he have a great family, but also this man, every single day, he'd get up and like, you know what? I'm going to go offer sacrifice in case my kids sinned in some way and they forgot to actually atone for that sin. This man was a man's man. He was absolutely awesome. So let's continue on with our story. So now we see in verse 6, it says, now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, from where have you come? Like you didn't know. Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down it. And the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man? He says it again. Who fears God and turns away from evil. He said it again. Then Satan answered the Lord and said, does Job fear God for no reason? Have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in this land, or in the land. So y'all might be wondering, who are the sons of God? The angels. It's very simple. The angels come before God, and Satan comes there also. And so here's a little fun theological caveat. A lot of people say that sin can't be in the presence of God, yet we see Satan, the father of all sins, in the presence of God. Sin doesn't remain in God's presence. Okay, back into our sermon. So all the angels are coming before God and having a meeting, and God says, hey, Satan, where you been? God already knows. He knows all things, right? He's all-knowing. Satan, where have you been? It's kind of like it's like he's telling the crowd, hey, y'all watch this. Something's about to happen. Satan says, well, you know, I've been like around the earth, you know, trying to mess people's lives up. That's what I do. And Job comes up. And I would think as an angel, it's like, okay, you just recommended this awesome man of God who does all these great things. You recommended him to Satan. Why would you do that? Why would you bring this man to Satan's attention? Because God says, have you considered, have you pondered, have you thought about, have you observed my servant Job? And does Satan say, who's Job? What's he like? Where does he live? What's his address? No, he doesn't say any of that stuff. He's like, well, duh, he serves you. Duh, he loves you. Because you do all these things for him. You take care of him. Look, you put a hedge of protection around him. Everything the man does, you bless. Anybody else find it odd that Satan immediately knew who God was talking about? Satan knows who God's followers are because they're his enemies. Satan is aware of the enemies of God as well, because those are the ones who, they don't really care. They follow Satan. They do his own thing. But Satan was distinctly aware of who Job was. So it's almost like God's like, hey, have you observed Job? And Satan's like, yeah, I have observed him. And Satan says, you know what, look, the only reason that this guy's doing all these things is because you've protected him. And then Satan gets an idea, because we always get ideas when we feel like we're high and mighty and we're talking to great authority. He says, you know what, God? How about this? Stretch out your hand. Well, let's be honest. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. Satan issued a little challenge. He said, you know what, God? How about this? I don't think that Job actually cares about you. I don't think that Job actually loves you. I don't think he will actually acknowledge you if you just stretch your hand out and mess with his life. And so God, being a loving and awesome God, said, I would never do that to my child. No, that's not what God says. It'd be great. That's not what God says. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, I'm sure it was like behold, it was deeper. Behold, all that he has in his, behold, all that he has is in your hand. Only against him do not stretch out your hand. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Just a little caveat. When I was writing this sermon earlier, I was reading from the wrong translation, so I did everything in the wrong translation and then how to redo it. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. But God says, you know what? Everything he has, you can touch it. You can mess with it. Do whatever you want. But don't touch him, though. Don't bother him. How do y'all think you would feel if you sat in on a conversation and heard God say about you, let's say Fadinka, you know what? Mess with her life. Mess with her family. Mess with her hairdo. Mess with her job, her GPA, everything. You don't mess with the dark woman's hair. You know, like anybody. Don't any of you guys. How do you think you would feel if you heard God say that? Well, let's continue on. Now there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and there came a messenger to Job and said, the oxen were plowing, doing what they do, and the donkeys were feeding beside them, and the Sabeans fell upon them and took them, and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword. And I alone have escaped to tell you. So that's servant number one. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, the fire of God fell from heaven and burned up all the sheep and the servants and consumed them. And I alone escaped to tell you. Servant number two. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, the Chaldeans formed the three groups and made a raid on the camels and took them and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. 3 servants so far have come to Job with terrible news. They basically said, hey, Job, so here's what happened. Everybody's hanging out, everybody's chilling, and then you got robbed. Okay, that's bad news, but he's very wealthy. All right, cool. Hey, Job, I know I'm out of breath. I'm a little tired, all right? I haven't been doing my cardio. Listen, let me tell you what had happened. Lightning, the fire of God came down and burned everybody. Like a barbecue? No, not just the sheep, the people also. Everybody's dead. Why are you still here? I don't really know, okay? I don't really know. Servant number 3 comes up. Hey, man, look. Why are you guys here? Why are you sweating? Let me tell you what had happened. The Chaldeans came up. I don't know why they made 3 groups. They made 3 groups, and they stole everything. They stole your camels. They stole the oxen. They took everything, and then they killed everybody with a sword. So Job is probably having a bad day, right? Yeah? Yes or no? Do you guys think he's having a bad day? Yes? Yeah. Somebody comes up to you and says, hey, your entire income is gone. Everything you own is gone. We'd probably freak out. We'd probably pull our hair. Some people would throw their hair. Hopefully no one in here. Pull our hair out. We'd probably freak out, kick something over, delete people on Instagram. Like, we'd be a little upset, right? And you would think, okay, look, it can't get worse. Like, my day can't get worse. Servant number 4. While he was yet speaking, it's almost like the person comes up, it's like, hey, I know what you're saying is important. I got to say something. Hey, I know what you're saying is important. I got to say something. Like, how bad can the news get? While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And behold, a great wind came across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house. And it fell upon the young people. And they are dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you. I'm going to preach to this side of the room because that's really bright over here, though. So 4 servants have come to Job. Number 1, hey, you were robbed. Number 2, hey, so look, people sorry, they just took your stuff. They murdered and they killed. And number 3 says, hey, by the way, you were robbed again, and everybody's dead. Number 4 says, hey, your family's gone. Your kids, they're all dead. And you would say, no, he still has his loving wife. No, if you look at chapter 2, she says roll over and die to him. So life's pretty bad for Job right now. Life's pretty bad for Job. So Job just lost everything, right? He's in a pretty bad situation. He's in a very lonely situation. You could say that. Your kids are gone. Your wife says roll over and die, which I hope none of you all say that to your future spouse in jest or being serious, because it's just not nice, okay? And it's not called for. Job has nothing, literally has nothing. How would you respond to that situation? Like for me, when I get bad news, things don't go well, I usually get a pint of Grater's ice cream and I watch a Disney movie, and that's my thing. Like I just chill out. I just hang out. It's just me. It's the ice cream and it's God. Like I don't need anybody, God. I'm gonna do my own thing. I like to get alone, But eventually I come out of that because my job is to hang out with people, and I got to stop eating ice cream. I only have so much money, and that ice cream's not cheap. Like I have to stop, right? But if I got that kind of news, like, hey, Akil, your entire family's gone, the church blew up, all the students are dead, this is just completely hypothetical, terrible. But that's what it'd be for me, because y'all are my family now, right? So if everyone's gone, hey, just letting you know this is what happened. All right, man, have a great day. Like, I would be freaking out. I would have some issues, right? But how does Job respond? Then Job arose and tore his robe, that seems normal, shaved his head, okay, and fell on the ground and worshipped God. Now, who was the cause of all these things that happened in Job's life? Satan, right? God allowed something to take place, but he said, Satan, go ahead. Now, Satan had a plan in mind, correct? Satan's plan was, look, the only reason that Job fears you, loves you, respects you is because you put a hedge of protection around him. You take that stuff away, he'll freak out. He won't love you anymore. He won't pursue you. I would pay to see Satan's face when all this stuff comes to Job, and he's just like, he's going to lose it. He's going to lose it. Man tears his clothes, look, he's losing it. Shaved his head, he's losing it. He worships God. What in the? That didn't go as planned, did it? It didn't. Why is it, though, that Job was able to do that? Would you worship God in the middle of that situation? And let's be honest. No, I wouldn't. I mean, maybe I'd eventually have a worship song that comes on because that's mostly what's on my iPhone, but they wouldn't be my choice. I would go to the ice cream and Disney movies, a lot of Disney movies. I'd get a gallon of ice cream. I'd be freaking out. I'd probably be crying and call somebody. That's where I'd probably reach out and say, look, I need help. But Job, he shows the typical Old Testament style of mourning, which is basically to tear your clothes. And they used to put ashes on. He shaved his head. Not his beard, his head, so I don't really know what was going on with that. But shaved his head, and then he worshiped God. Fell on the ground and worshiped God. And it's what he says next that's incredibly mind-blowing. But it also gives you a glimpse into the soul of this man. And he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. He said, look, I came in the world with nothing. I'm going to leave with nothing. The Lord gave me so much in my life. The Lord has taken away so much while I'm still alive. But he's holy, and he's perfect, and he's a good God. That was his response to the situation. That blows my mind. I don't know if I'd ever have been in a situation where I could say, you know what, life is so terrible, God, let me praise you. Now, I've told people, hey, yeah, when life gets crazy, just think about 5 things you're grateful for. Think about what you're happy for. Think about what makes you joyous. Think about what God's doing in your life, or thank God for what he's not doing to you. But when you're in that situation, when it's just you, and your life goes crazy, I just can't imagine getting on my knees and saying, God, you're good. You've given me so many great things, and you've taken them away. But God, you're good. Now, can I acknowledge that God is good in all situations? I can say it, but I don't know if my soul can acknowledge it. But this man's response in the midst of such trial, such pain, such suffering, was, God, you're good. And now I want to go back to something I mentioned earlier to you all, was the idea of being lonely versus being alone. This is a moment where Job was alone, right? His kids, the 10 kids, gone. His thousands of animals, they're all dead or burned up or stolen. His servants, except for 4, are gone. Everybody's gone. His wife, she might as well be gone. She said, roll over and die. So he's alone. And yet, for some reason, in the midst of this, Job didn't freak out. Job didn't get worrisome, and that's what it means when you get lonely. Basically, it's you get sad and overwhelmed, burdened by being alone. Job was very aware and cognizant of the fact that he had no one else around him. And yet, for some reason, in the midst of having no one else around him, he said, my God is good. How? And why could he say that? Because Job recognized, look, my God isn't just about these few years that I'm on this world. That's not his focus. His focus was before, during, and after I was ever thought of. His focus is eternity. He focuses on everything. He sees all things, and he's aware. And here's what Job understood more than anything else. My God will never forsake or abandon me. He said, my God cares for me. So bless his name, because he's good. Even if I have nothing, even if he takes everything from me, he's still good. He's still awesome. He's still worthy of my praise. My children are gone. My income is gone. I feel like literally his family is gone. And yet he says, God's good. His situation didn't overwhelm him. But I wonder if I was in that situation, or if you were in that situation, or anybody in the world was in that situation where we literally lost everything. I mean, people freak out about losing all their Instagram followers, let's be honest. Like, you lose all your Instagram followers, if somebody hacks your account, you would think that someone died. People would think someone died in your life because you throw a pity party. Imagine if you lost your entire family, everyone you're close to, everyone who knew you, and you're just like, look, I'm alone. How would you respond? What would get you through that? Because something has to. We see in Genesis that God says it was not good for man to be alone. But he didn't say it wasn't good for man. He didn't say it wasn't good for man to be lonely, right? He didn't say that because he knew that man was alone. He's like, look, I created you first, and I created Eve. But why didn't he say it wasn't good for man to be lonely? Because God never intended, never wanted man to be lonely. God's desire is for fellowship, is for relationship. God says, look, I'm going to be with you. Jesus actually says it. The last thing he says to his people, and lo, I will be with you even until the end of the age. He says, no matter where you go in life, if you go in accordance to my will, I am with you. I will not abandon you. I will not forsake you. You will never be lonely. Even in the hardest times of your life, even when no one else understands or relates to what's going on in your life, I am with you. You will never be lonesome. You will never be lonely, even when you're completely alone. I live alone, and it's awesome. It's nice and quiet. I don't have to, if I want to clean up, I can. If I don't want to clean up for a couple months, I don't have to. It's great. Not that that happens, because there are critters, all kind of critters in Florida. But I live alone. But I'm not lonely. I'm not. Because the God that I serve gets me through. The same God that Job chose to serve, that got him through this situation, is the same God that I've chosen to serve, that gets me through every single day when I go home and say, cool, I'm alone. But it's okay, God, because you've got my back, because you're my best friend, because you're my refuge, because you're the one I can run to instead of having to run to ice cream, or instead of having to run to Disney movies. Even though Disney movies are awesome and ice cream is delicious, it won't satisfy my soul. And so I have a question for you all. And I want you to ask yourself this. What keeps me from being lonely? Is it, oh, I'm going to text this girl because I feel like no one's talking to me right now. I'm going to text this guy. Is it looking through Snapchat, reading through people's stories? Is it going through Instagram, just flipping through? What is it that you do that keeps you from feeling lonely? Not alone, because it's totally fine to be alone in life. In fact, there are seasons in your life where God says, I want you to be alone. I want you to be by yourself right now, and I want to be right here with you, because I don't want you to realize something. All the things in the world, all these things, they're going to let you down. But I never will, because it's outside of my nature. I am with you through all things. So God will sometimes put you in a desert by yourself because he wants you to get to know him. He wants you to enjoy who he is and who he's created you to be. But what do we do when we start feeling lonely? How do we handle it? What do we run to? Does everybody in your mind have what you run to when you get lonely? In all honesty, like in honest, I don't want you to answer out loud. But when you think about, okay, when I get lonely, when I'm bored, because boredom is also a sign of being lonely. When I have nothing going on in my mind and I feel like I need to connect to something, what do I choose to connect to? Or who do I choose to connect to? And now with that in your mind, you think to yourself, is this thought, this person, this idea, this whatever I've attached myself to, this whatever fixes my loneliness, is this good enough for my eternity? Is this going to last me for my eternity? Is this going to last me tomorrow, the next day, a year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Like if it's a person, people die all the time, y'all. They really do. All the time. If it's a social media thing, Facebook, it's kind of waning away. And what was it? That was that thing that's Vine. Vine, gone. So many things that we say, look, this is my identity. We had a student at my last church, and he was Vine famous because he had thousands of people following him to the point where he did a Vine at a hotel, and they came and brought them complimentary stuff and free things because they said, look, you've already got all these thousands of views, and it's been 15 minutes. You are the man. It's just like, I like the mini fridge. Like, there's good candy in there. Literally, middle school guy. That was his response. Like, I like the candy. But Vine's gone now. So where is his identity? Because let's be honest. Whatever it is that keeps me from being lonely is what I identify with. It's where I place my identity. Because it's what I hold on to desperately to make me feel like I'm worth something. Some people, it's money. When they have enough money, they feel like I've got it. I'm good. I'm somebody. I matter. When they have a certain job, they feel like, yes, I'm somebody. I matter. When they have a certain boyfriend or girlfriend, or having children, or having a home, or having a car, whatever it might be, or possessions, or just collecting things, or catching a certain size fish, we feel like we matter because of those things. But those things will never amount to giving you your worth and your value in your life. They just can't. They can't. Bless you. You're welcome. How many of you all, though, and let's just be honest, let's be real, let's be vulnerable. How many of you all say, look, I struggle with being lonely, and I don't know if I turn to the right thing. I don't know if I turn and go to the right thing. I don't know if I turn to Jesus in my loneliness, but I want to. Now, some of y'all might say, you know what, look, I never really considered being lonely in my life, and now as you talk about it, like maybe every now and then, maybe every now and then I get a little lonely, I start scrolling through, maybe. And some of y'all might say, look, I don't really know about this whole Jesus thing. Like, does he really feel loneliness? Is he really there for me? Does he really care about me? Well, let me explain to you very quickly who Jesus Christ is. Co-equal, co-eternal, perfect God in the form of man who came to earth because he simply said, look, you're worth it. He recognized the fact that mankind was created to be in fellowship with God. Mankind was created to be in fellowship with God forever. The rest of your life and on and on and on. But then something happened, sin. And it was our choices to say, you know what, God, I don't need you. I can be the God of my own life. I can make my own decisions. I know what's best for me. I have perfect knowledge, perfect understanding. I can see the future. I've got it, God, because I'm God. I can do your job. So get off the throne and let me do what I want to do. Just a little, that's sin right there. And Jesus said, look, sin has a consequence. It rips you away from God. It rips you away from your purpose of life. It's the reason that you feel lonely. It's the reason so many people in the world pursue so many things to feel like they matter, to feel satisfied, to feel like they're a part of something because they're lonesome. They're empty inside. And without God in your life, you'll forever be empty. You'll forever be lonesome. You'll forever be lonely. No matter how many people are around you, you will be lonely. And he said, you know what? I live a perfect life for you. I'm living a life that you should have lived, but you didn't live. And then I'm dying a cursed death on a cross that you should die, but I won't make you die. He paid the price for our sins on the cross. And then 3 days later, he was raised from death into newness of life. That's Jesus. And he says, now look, follow me. Trust that I have the best plan for your life. Trust that I want to serve you, that I want to love you. Trust the fact that me coming, condescending, which means coming down to the earth to meet you where you are, to live alongside you, to love you, to serve you, was for your benefit and not for mine. That's the God that I serve. That's the Jesus that I serve. And that's the Jesus I can run to and say, God, I had a terrible day today. Or I can run to him and say, God, I had a great day today. But no matter what I go through in my life, I can run to him because he is worthy and he will always be worthy. So that is why Job was able to say in the midst of all these, after his 4 servants came up to him and said, look, your life is over. Everything is crazy. And imagine their response when they see their master say, okay, rips his clothes, shaves his head, and says, blessed be the name of God. Blessed be God, because I had nothing when I came into this world, and I'll have nothing when I leave. But everything that I have, he has given me. Everything that I've acquired, he's gifted me with. But these things don't matter. They're important, but they don't matter to my soul. What matters to my soul is that the God of all creation identifies with me and says, you are loved. You are set apart, and you are mine. So my question for every single person in here is, have you made the choice to let Jesus into your life and say, look, you are loved, you're set apart, and you are mine? Because if you have, it'll change everything about you. Not just your actions, but it changes your purpose. It gives you identity, it gives you clarity, it gives you freedom. And no longer do we have to worry about, God, I feel lonely. Because even in those moments where we're like, God, I feel lonely, God's like, look, I'm right here. Let's talk. Let's engage. Let's dialogue. I will never forsake you. And so I pray for every single one of you in here that one day, if today is not today, if the day has not happened today or not in some point in your life that you haven't made the choice to let Jesus be the Lord of your life, to walk alongside you, if you haven't put your trust in him, I pray that one day you say, God, I can't do it. I can't do this by myself. I can't feel the emptiness. I can't fill the emptiness. I can't fill the gap. I can't do it, God. I'm not enough. Because here's what God says. Yeah, I know, and it's okay. Because he says, look, I am. I am enough for you. You were created for me. You were created to be loved, to be cherished, and to be made whole. And Jesus is the only way for that to happen. He's the only way.